that's on my screen, yo.
Yeah, that song, Chris. Hey, everybody, my name's Shawn Shaler. The guy singing the Lion King song is Chris Ford, a.k.a. The Objective Geek of YouTube and Twitter and book review fame. I don't know how many verses this song has. I really want to animate all the action figures in the background behind you to do a choreographed dance of some type.
You know what random thought I was thinking about? Like, if Toy Story was like real, then like my action figures would hate me. They're like, we gotta get back into position.
He's very
Like they would
detail
never.
oriented, and there's a lot of us on this shelf.
They'll notice us. And all the Batmans will be like, yes, let's do this. Here's the plan. And then yeah.
But some of the Batmans would disagree with some of the other Batmans because they all have a certain amount of Bruce Wayne hubris to assume that they're the best Batman to make the choice.
Yes. Oh man, there would be like a shoot. This is a movie in itself.
A lot of Batman. Like instead of the Spider-Verse, it should have been into the Batverse, and it's just a lot of different Bruce Wayne iterations arguing with each other.
What would Toy Story for WB be called?
Toy
I'm
Story.
surprised they actually haven't done this movie.
That actually, it's probably called Small Soldiers or whatever that movie was. That was a WB movie, right? Toy Soldiers? Small Soldiers.
I don't know.
You know what I'm talking about, though?
No, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay, yeah, that's probably a WB movie if I had to guess. Welcome to Avatar: The Last Podcasters. It's currently almost midnight. This is part 2 of our Dawn of Yangchen full spoilery review. So if you don't want spoilers, turn it off now. And if you don't want spoilers, don't watch last week's either. But this is part 2. So what we're going to do is give our ratings of the story. And then we're going to give our top 3 favorite moments. And then after that, we're going to summarize our thoughts by talking about every other moment that we forgot to talk about last week that we really like. And some that we did talk about last week that we really like. It's going to be fun. Chris, do you want to dive into some ratings?
Ratings. Okay, so we usually break down episodes by audio-visual, by story, and by memorability. So this will be like somewhat close. Similar to it. We'll break it down by story. We'll break it down by action, but really it's more like audio. To me, that's like mental audio visual. Like
right, the mental picture that it helps you create.
Yes. And then
we said lore
memorability.
drop.
I said lore, yeah, like lore drop, which is to me kind of like memorability. Like what am I like? Oh, this is really cool. Doesn't really have to do with, just kind of lore drop.
And I think especially in this particular novel, that calling it lore drop is a good way to describe some of my positive feelings about this novel. So I think that was a good change. In fact, Chris, do you want to go back and forth instead of the all 3 for you and all 3 for me?
Yeah.
I've got lore drop listed first, and I'm excited to talk about that one. Because I put my lore drop at a 9.5. I loved that was this novel's greatest strength, spoiler alert, is the way that it alluded to and set up things that we as longstanding Avatar fans already know about in the universe. And that those are the parts that to me were kind of the most memorable, if you want to call it that, or the most interesting parts of the novel is how prequels are hard, right? Because we already have some outline. So for FCE to take some of those things and integrate them cleverly and amusingly is a big strength. So 9.5 on lore drop from Shawn.
Was there anything specific?
I mean, all the things, right? Like Guru Lahima, the Firebenders, the White Lotus. He did so many of those things within this story. Even little things that like, maybe not lore drop, but I love the way that he sets up Yangchen as such a different character than Aang, even. So that may not quite qualify for here, but it feels like that to me.
No, I think it does qualify, which is so character is part of story, but for some reason I think of like learning more about Yangchen and her characteristics as a kind of a lore drop because she was not like Aang. Like one thing she is far more manipulative, far more playing the Game of Thrones, far more. Also, she was very funny. Like she was a really funny character.
Not haha
Um,
funny like Aang is, but like clever funny.
yeah, and everything just she came across more, I think, natural. Maybe that's just because it's a whole different medium. But
I will
yeah,
agree
so
that
just learning
character fits.
more.
I'll agree that character fits in story, but I think here specifically when it's hitting lore drop for me is just the staunch differences between two air nomads as our
Yes, yeah,
avatars is what, and that's one of the more
and
memorable parts of the whole book.
yeah, and just how differently they are when it comes to spirituality. Like it took Aang a really long. I mean, it took him like a year to well, not a year. It took him to travel on the summer solstice to the Fire Nation to talk to Roku. And Kyoshi, not Kyoshi, Yangchen is possibly more, she has more natural spiritual power probably than any avatar because she's just naturally interacting with these past lives. To her,
Involuntarily.
yes, involuntarily. Yeah. Um, and so I just always find it so interesting just how different avatars handle spirituality. Like, I feel like Kuruk, I don't think we even get a sense that Kuruk in his time as the avatar talked to his past lives that much. Maybe there is one passage where he asks them like how to deal with dark spirits and none of them had any answers. Or
He
maybe
was
I'm
just
thinking
annoying him.
about
It's like, oh, it's that guy again with his spirits
yeah.
garbage.
Yeah. Um and then it took a long time for Korra to tell her past lives. Like she had to reach her lowest point to talk to Aang. And then after that we didn't see her like talking to him that much. Aang, it's interesting, Aang's kind of naturally they didn't really explain it in the show, but he was just like at one point like, oh, I just talked to my past lives. Like this like it was a difficult it
He
didn't
was
explain how he made that growth
he was
of
still
like,
working
oh
off some
I
cryo fog, you know.
yeah. Like he went from like it needs to be the summer solstice and it needs to hit like a Roku statue to like you give Roku a call and you talk to his past lives. And let me give Kyoshi a call. Let me talk to Korg. Let me talk to Yang Chen. Yeah, they never really explained that growth and how he was then able to do that. Oh,
They were still putting out feelers.
yeah, it's fine, whatever, not a big deal. But I just love the difference between the avatars. Oh, anyway, my score for Lord Drop, I think it'll be a 9 out of 10.
Okay.
Also, the silver combustion bending, while in the sense of it being the big MacGuffin, and that being somewhat the point of like, this is this a. I was just guessing. I had no idea what the guess would be for what the weapon of mass destruction would be. I think they handled it really well, and I love like how he introduces for the first time all these different lores of Avatar. Also, we got more White Lotus. I like seeing the White Lotus and more of a like a sketchy kind of point of view. Like I don't know about those people. Like they claim to be all about enlightenment stuff, but who the heck are they helping out? Like stuff like that. And they're all judgmental also. um, so I like that aspect of it. And yeah, there was just more stuff I think related to lore that you get so much out of in these novels. Just even small stuff. Um,
That combustion bender reveal might be a negative for my story score, but it's a positive in the lore drop memorable
yeah,
category
I'm gonna go blind here for a minute.
for sure.
Um, but yeah,
Well, let's
yes,
let's
lore really cool.
let's hit up action next. I went with, I'm gonna say this was not a high point for me if we're talking about action in terms of story visualization in my brain as I'm reading, and also just big events occurring in the story and being able to visualize those. Not so good. I'm gonna say 6.5.
I agree with that totally. I was stuck between a 6 and a 7 because the thing is, I know what good action feels like in these novels. Like the Kyoshi novels had it. I was following it. Like there was a couple times
Especially the
where,
first one, man.
yeah, like that scene of her against Zoo, and then and even like it had way more action scenes just throughout it. Like
There were
there's
more scenes that
Kyoshi
you wanted to be
versus
drawn into visually and that were successfully translated. This one, it felt so few and far between, and then I still struggled to
yeah,
piece them together sometimes.
like there's probably 6 major action scenes in the first book. Like you have like Joshi and Team Avatar with Yoon and uh, Rangi and her mother Heiran versus the Pirate Queen. Oh, and then you had uh, Kyoshi versus Jianju, Kyoshi versus Zu, Rangi versus in that like fighting ring thing. Their assault on the compound type of deal. Um, I know I'm missing a couple other different moments. Them running from like a sheer shoe or whatever it was.
The spirit monster jumping out of the cave and eating Yoon.
Yeah.
There was just lots more things that sort of demanded your imagination
Yes.
and fed it.
Yes.
I would argue
Yes.
the second Kyoshi novel did not do as good, but it was better in that regard than this one.
Yeah. If I had to rate those, yeah, the first one, probably 10 out of 10, amazing. The second one, that's still that last fight between Rangi Kyoshi against Yoon, who's like a dark kind of spirit. That was still cool. Like that was a really good. Like I the scene to me of when they're like kind of beaten down, they're bleeding, and they both notice they're bleeding, and then they wipe. Kyoshi like wipes her blood on her eyes to make the makeup, and then like Rangi puts hers wherever it goes. It's different than Kyoshi's. Like I can imagine that scene and that fight happening. Um,
It's somewhere in the
that one
department
was,
of like a 10, 8.5, 6.5, or something like that for me.
I think
Uh,
so. I think so. Yeah, 10, 8.5, 6.5. Yeah, or sit somewhere. This one is, I mean, there is the scene when they're fighting the combustion benders, but it seemed like to be like more, I don't know, more talk. Like, it was a great scene where um, Yang is yelling at them, like, I am the Avatar. Like, and she's kind of proclaiming that she has like dominion here. But yeah, this book was just lacking on the action.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
Chris, last category, story. I'll keep going first because I've just started doing that and I'll stay consistent. Uh,
Good.
st- Story, I'm waffling between a 7.5 and an 8. I
Hmm.
think I'm going to land on a 7.5. Um, and I think that's mostly just to do with, we talked about it in our last episode, some longer drawn out scenes that maybe didn't amount to a whole lot in the moment. Some dead time, some downtime, some minor plot conveniences. And then again, it's not a story that's just quite as conducive to the type of action that I was hoping for. Not that everything has to be like an 80s action movie kind of action, but just, a little more meat on the bone would have been good. So I think I'm going to land on a 7.5.
Yeah, I'm going to go with very close with you here. I'm gonna go with a 7. Wait, is that even fair? Yeah, it's 7. 7. Yeah, 7. In fact, I'm gonna solidify my action at a 6. Because to me, the action and the story shouldn't be that close.
Okay.
I thought the action was a. So yeah, so action was a 6. Story a 7 or 7. 7.5. That sounds good.
Okay.
That feels good.
We each have to do our
Um,
own math for this one because it's going to be messy.
yeah. So one thing, I love this book. I don't want to say like this is me objectively being like, hey, here's this and that. But as an Avatar fan, I love reading this book.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and we're also not like the most credible literary critics.
yeah. Um, the Story thought was good. I love seeing Yang having to traverse these things. The Game of Thrones issue. I forget just how much I miss the Game of Thrones, which is like what's so good about the show Game of Thrones is that it has the term Game of Thrones has it's in my vocabulary and it defines like people positioning themselves to gain power through diplomatic means, if through manipulation and diplomacy, like a balance between the two. And this book had a lot of that. Um, and
It's
so
not
I
that
enjoy that aspect of the story.
it's not that it's counting against the story specifically, but as I was trying to think about scores, a lot of the things that I liked best were more related to their lore connection to future Avatar. And so
Yeah,
again,
yeah,
that's a
no,
story negative, but I didn't want to give too much credit to the story just for like dropping things that were already in
uh,
existence.
yeah. But I love seeing Yang Chen in these positions. Um, I love seeing how she had to like work the system and how she works with Kavik. On the bad side, because I feel like this was too focused on Kavik. Like there was too much. The story was like 50% Yang Chen, 50% Kavik, and I'm like, Kavik's okay. He's but Yang Chen is what I'm here for, and Kavik wasn't. Like every time it was like, oh, this is a Kavik chapter, or this is a three Kavik chapters in a row. I just want to get back to Yang Chen. I mean, he's a cool enough character, but not good enough that he takes up 50% of the story.
Yeah, he's a fine enough, team Avatar side gig
Yeah,
kind of
like
guy.
imagine if the Legend of Korra was like 50% Korra and 50% Mako. Like I love Mako, but I don't want 50% of Mako in the story.
You'd be a lot better off with like 50% Bolin.
Yeah, like it's funny
That's
because
probably
like
debatable with some people.
Avatar Last Airbender, if you're like 50% Zuko, 50% Aang, I'm like, well, that's kind of what the show is. Like almost like it.
So what if you
Yeah.
replace Zuko with just more Katara time?
Uh,
Katara is better than
yeah.
Kavik, but like, do you want 50% of your show about Katara? She's a great character, but
Yeah.
50%?
I think now I feel like I'm dogging on Kavik because Katara is more of an interesting character than
Yeah,
Kavik. I feel like
yeah, absolutely.
the like I could read a chapter of just Katara's thoughts and be really entertained, but like I don't think I would necessarily with like a Mako chapter or I think a Bolin chapter actually would be interesting just to get more of his POV
I'd
on
read a
stuff.
Bolin chapter all day, but I wouldn't
Yeah.
enjoy like a Mako
Imagine a
chapter.
imagine a imagine a Varric chapter.
That
Is
it's all
it
just
not?
handwritten notes from Julie, like
Yeah,
all
yeah,
of his notes to self, and that's the whole chapter. That'd be a good like last season meta episode when they're running out of ideas.
yeah. Um. So anyway, story 7.5 out of 10.
Chris, if I'm not mistaken, my score is something like a 7.66.
Ooh, really? Okay.
I had a
Uh,
9.5, a 7.5, and a 6.5.
one
Evenly
sec.
scaled. That doesn't sound right though. I feel like I'm doing some bad math. 9.5,
Let's
7.5.
say
You know what? I'll pull up the calculator. I don't trust
nine
myself.
plus 7.5 plus 6 equals 22 and a half. Yeah, mine's gonna be like 7 point something divided by 3. Dang it, what the oh stupid thing. 22 and a
Oh yeah,
half.
okay, so 7.8 for me. That feels right. I'm okay with that
And
number.
I'm at exactly a 7.5.
Okay.
So
Um
then that gets us to 7.64 or whatever. I don't know.
somewhere I mean, I think we're in a good ballpark though in terms of saying it's a
Yeah,
7.5 to an 8 book, like it's a C
right,
to B
7.65.
minus caliber book. And
Yeah, 7.65.
I think that is a fine place to put it personally. Um Chris, that being said, we also wanted to supplement this episode talking about our favorite moments. So we should start with top three, and we'll just like snake draft our way from three, two, one, and then we're gonna fill in the gaps with all the other moments that we just couldn't fit in our top moments.
Yes.
Do you want to kick
Sounds
off
good.
with your number three, and that way,
Sure.
yeah, you go first.
All right. My number three is I think um her conversation with the lady from the White Lotus. I thought was really interesting and really provided. Um, I think it really provided context around the White Lotus's role and more lore, I think, on her background. There's really interesting conversations in there. She mentions, and I'm gonna go back to the picture that I was taking. Dang it, wrong thing. It's funny because the lady is like, you could be doing so much more. You could be talking to your past life. And Kyoshi, not Kyoshi, Yang is like, I already tried your suggestion. I sought out the avatars of eras gone by. At some point, I figured, why not go on the attack, you know? The emotional storms brought on by memories of her past life, so vivid she couldn't tell who or where she was. And the impression says, I spoke to dozens of previous avatars upon dozens. And she says, saw through their eyes, watched through their lives unfurl. Time doesn't pass the same way inside a vision as it does in the physical world. At first, I was overwhelmed by the noise of it all. As someone who appreciates intelligence, I'm sure you understand the sheer quantity of information you have to sift through to find something relevant. Then I started noticing patterns over the eras. I witnessed repetition. I sat in front of my predecessors humbly, asked so many questions, listened to so many answers. Do you know what I learned? Their lives are full of regret, lost chances to make the world a better place. To me, that's what sticks out sharpest in their memories, their regrets over the times they did nothing.
That's
I
hashtag
felt the
deep right
shame.
there.
Yeah. Like, the thing is, this lady was like trying to put Yang Chen in her place of just like, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? Yang Chen is like, I tried that, idiot. Like, nothing's like, and then it goes back to a conversation Yang Chen later has with Kyoshi, where she tells Kyoshi like, you could talk to your all your past lives for years, and you will not know how to better serve the world than before. Which also goes to show like Avatar wisdom is overrated.
Those former avatars haven't tried to rule in today's world. Chris,
Yeah,
that's a
like it's
stellar moment. Oh, sorry, I
yeah.
interrupted you.
No, I mean it helped that I pulled it up.
No, that's a great moment, and I'm not. It's not in my top three, but now I'm a little sad that it's not because after hearing you say it, it's like, oh, you know what, that's pretty sick. But it's not my top three. I'll stick to my normal guns. My number three is just the reveal of when Kavik realizes that the firebenders themselves, the people guarding the crate, you knew they were going to be special because they allude to it earlier. It's like, hey, there's these three guys guarding the crate, or these three people, pardon me, guarding the crate, and all they do the entire time is eat, and they never leave the side of the crate. And so you're like, all right, well, they're going to be operating this machine or whatever the heck is in that crate. They're like important. They're not just guards. But then the crate drops and it breaks and all the stuff falls out of it, and the three people secretly walk away with Hinchi. The three ultimately they're combustion benders. That was a really fun reveal. And of some of the reveals in this book that weren't so great, that's one that I kind of enjoyed, even if I didn't, again, maybe I didn't appreciate story-wise that they were firebenders. I like the way that it was revealed in this book about sort of secrets and information, that it was just people were the weapon. I don't know, there was something kind of poetic about that I enjoyed. Uh, Chris, number two moment. I'll go first here, then you can go first on the last one. My number two moment is in the Northern Air Temple. After a very long day of traveling and healing that woman that's in the ward, and then figuring out that her child's still out there somewhere and that he's probably dead. And Yang Chen Yangchen and Kavik have a certain amount of bonding there. And then at the end of the day, Kavik looks over. I couldn't really picture this part in my head, but he looks over to this airball court and he kind of sees Yangchen, who just had gotten done, I don't know if it's a few minutes or a few hours before, trying to explain to him just focusing on this one woman, healing this one person, trying to do good for this one person, and that they can't let the loss of the child distract them from the good that they did do, right? And she puts on this big avatar show, and then he looks out and sees this very human, very young person behaving in a way that a young person might, sort of self-chastising, self-punishing slightly, out on the airball court, trying to get that sort of evil, that bad taste out of her mouth and out of her system. And I thought that was a really cool way to humanize Yangchen, who otherwise to this point had felt, won't say like more mature than her years, but not very teenage-like at any point in this story until then.
Yeah, yeah. My number 2 moment is Yang Chen surprising Kavik at home. Like, it's not like a huge moment, but I found it to be just so indicative of the character Yang Chen is. It added so much character to her. She was like playful, like mischievously, but she's also kind of manipulative and stuff. Just the way that she was like lying to his parents, but still making him look good. But then that put him kind of in debt to her. Then it ends with the like "you're in my pocket" type of deal. It's a weird top moment, but I loved it.
That
I
was
loved it a lot.
unexpected to me. I did not. It's not once it knocked, you had a feeling, but I did not expect to see the knock at the door or to read the knock at the door, I guess.
Yeah.
And so that part of it to me was unexpected in a really good, entertaining way.
Yep.
Chris, you want to start with our number one moment that I have a feeling we share?
Sure. I'm gonna show a short moment. Because it's hard for me to think about. Well, once you say yours, I probably agree with it. I think my number one moment is Yang Chen putting all the Shangs in their place, and but to me, it was really her at her most powerful. Like, there's no like real bending moment. There's just like, oh, this is the most powerful moment of Yang. It was just her having knowledge above them and using it and putting them, because like she was so much in like a low, like she was embarrassed almost, and she's like, screw this, I'm going into the avatar state of diplomacy here, of verbal attacks.
It's not at all what I thought you would pick, but that's a great moment. And it shows kind of maybe what we valued out of this book. You going back to that Game of Thrones, something that's come up repeatedly. But for me, I have to go the way that she strategically took down the combustion benders. I love
That
that.
was a close one. That was a very I in all honesty, I just came up with these top 3 moments just now. But that was one of the ones that kept swirling in my head between that and these three. And
It's
you probably heard me talking about it when I was trying to think
uh-huh.
earlier.
Well, and I'm going to say that I had roughly these 3 moments identified as my top 3 in the last episode, but I hadn't quite decided what order to put them in until we were in between
This
episodes there.
honestly, it was in my top 3 before I was reading over some pages, and that third one was a page I highlighted in my notes, and so it could have easily asked me in a couple of days. Opinion probably won't change because it's not like I'm going to reread a book in that time. But ask
But just
me in.
sleep on it a little bit. You never know.
But no, I think it's great, especially the moment where she's like, I am the avatar" type of deal. Um, yeah, she does have to do something out of the ordinary to take them out.
And I love the. It reminded me of playing like Arkham City,
Ooh,
especially
yeah.
on like the Wii U when I'm playing Arkham City. And for the detective mode, it puts you to the gamepad to help you sort of directionally identify certain things. Made me feel like I was playing Arkham City specifically on the Wii U, which is a
Uh,
weird recommendation I have. But yeah, that is the best way to play Arkham City. I'll say it.
really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Just because
I've never I never once thought about buying a Wii. No, that's wrong. I thought about once buying a Wii U,
It's not
and then that's
worthwhile.
more.
Like, don't do it now if you haven't. But if you have a Wii U, Arkham Asylum just does a really nice job of making use of the gamepad in a way that a lot of games can't because it's just a gimmick.
Yeah.
Now, Batman Detective
Wii
Mode in
U
particular
probably
plays to it.
is. I think the Wii U is the worst Nintendo item
I mean, people are
as a
going to tell
console.
you, like, well, you're not counting Virtual Boy. And that's because nobody counts Virtual Boy. It doesn't count. But if you don't count Virtual Boy, then yeah, Wii U is. It's a piece of garbage. Chris, my Wii U, I still have it and I actually like it because it's modded for the Wii and the GameCube, and it plays both in over HDMI, and it's a pretty effective, attractive way to play maybe questionably legal downloaded copies of games for the Wii and GameCube over HDMI. So my Wii U exists because it plays Wii and GameCube games real good. That's it. That's its whole
Uh,
life. Yeah, so I love the part where she strategically takes down the combustion benders and captures them, and that's in my mind her greatest exercise of airbending prowess is like essentially suffocating them without murdering them. I think that's pretty cool. And Chris, we talked a lot about honorable mentions, which is basically going to be us talking about other moments that we want to talk about until we get tired.
yes. Okay. So I'm just looking through my notes. Um, okay, well that's us after. Wait, no, let's take pictures of something before that. All right, here's my first note. Let's see, what is it? Uh, well, before, okay. So one of the ones I really like because it just fully supports why I'm an air nomad at heart. Um, it says Yangchen is talking to uh, Sadao. Yeah, she says, "Do you know what makes an air nomad?" Um, and then he shook his head, and she said, "It's the ability to sit down quietly wherever you are, be it dark room or empty field, and just sit. Sit with yourself without causing problems or hurting anyone else. That's it. That's all it is. The airbidding pales in comparison." That is just like me to like I can just sit somewhere with like not a care in the world and just be at at peace just sitting there.
I would be like the kid Abernathy Darwin Dunlap from Accepted when he walks up to their meditation 101 and he sits down for like a second. He's like, okay, thank you. That was so great.
Yeah. All right. Oh, do you have another honorable mention?
Other honorable mention moments that you didn't already mention. Oh, I loved that. I just now thought of this. It's coming off the top of my head, but I love the fact that Kavik like did an extra sneaky out of his way to drop the money at essentially like a soup kitchen. All of his Yang Chen money, and I think I liked also that like right then they kind of alluded to it previously, but right then it confirmed to me as like this isn't just like an ordinary guy on the streets like scrapping by just to survive. And again, they kind of alluded to that a little bit already that he was kind of playing his own game. But yeah, when he like dumps all that money off, warmed my heart a little bit and told us a little more about what his home life might be like. That was really touching.
Yeah. Another moment is when his name is Jujinta, I think.
Jujinta. Yeah,
Uh,
okay. That's
yeah.
yeah. That's as good a
When
guess as I
he
would have had.
when he like has to use uh the knife when there's that moment where he's like a union this and this. And it's kind of spiritual to him. So that was a I just remember that being like a cool moment of him having to uh oh, then he like gets the bow out and he like weighs it and he thinks about the bow as if respecting it's like water tribe. this person uses this type of tree or something to make the bow, this string. This person is like this tall, giving off like he respects the bow.
He's meditative about the mere presence of the bow.
Hmm.
I liked when I believe it was her information from the White Lotus led Yang Chen to the fields where they found essentially these large craters that were being created by some type of, I'm going to call it artillery for lack of a better word, to tip her off that there was some kind of machinery or weaponized human heads being tested there.
Yeah, yeah. Other moment, I think I might. Oh, she's having the the initiation to the White Lotus, if you will. Like she says the whole deal. She plays. She says, the whole. Uh, what did she do first? She she says the first part of the kind of the code, and then he doesn't respond. And she says, like, those who do can always find a friend. She replied to herself because the man was not like he was purposely not trying to let her in. And then she like pretty much plays the whole game of Pie Show by herself. And then she does it like really quickly. And then she says to herself again, "Welcome, sister. The White Lotus opens wide to those who know her secrets." He stared at her, bewildered. She didn't have time for him to parse out that her identifying rations were indeed correct. And she's like, "Look, the deal is right there in the last part of the passage. You can't actually be certain that I'm not a member. The hurdle is knowing the secrets, and I know the secrets. You are obligated to open wide." Like, for some reason, Yang Jin just comes off like, she just comes off really cool.
She's like a lawyer. This toothbrush is
Yeah.
bone dry. No, the oh, Chris, I just thought of this too, and neither one of us has mentioned this yet. Didn't that woman in the Northern Air Temple, her child lived, and they found him later, right? Like at the
Yes.
end of
Oh
the
yeah, yeah.
book.
We forgot to mention that.
I don't feel
Yeah,
like
and that was
neither one.
almost kind of just like a hey, don't lose hope. Like everything you do is like imagine that you didn't save that woman because you didn't try hard, and then the child was like, "What happened to my mom?"
the It's like we got sort of a happy ending. Like, okay, they won the battle against the combustion benders, but she's kind of still sort of losing the war. But that is that little seed of hope that makes you feel good about the proverbial war at large. You need that at the end.
Yeah. Also, we didn't mention that Havok seemed to be joining the White Lotus by the end of the book.
Oh, I kind of forgot about that.
Yeah.
Um,
Um.
what else is out there moment wise?
Jeez.
It could be the time of night, but that's all that's coming to me off the top of my head. You got some things flagged though, I believe. Feel free
Yeah. Let
to.
me. I liked when Tapu, I think his name, one of the combustion bender. Someone asked him like, "How did you come by this power?" He's like, "Bitter work." Which one thing
That was a
is
great lore
a
drop. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah
beautiful.
episode bitter work where Aang is trying to learn how to earthbend and
There's a
Zuko
moose
is trying to learn
lion
how to
cub
lightning. Yes,
and a meat
uh,
promise.
but he said it was by torturous training. I didn't find this ability like a coin in the street. Neither did the others. We three are the product of significant investments. Uh,
And then he's straight up like, yeah, the other one's drowned.
yeah, yeah.
It was like really creepy, and then it never came back up again.
Uh, yeah. Let's see, I guess she was trying to pull insurance. Sorry, just reading through a couple different notes. Let's see, there was a part where she tricks the Earth King. Like the Earth King, just like Here's pretty much proposing him what they should do to fix his problems. And he's like, "What would an air nomad know of administration?" She's like, "Very little." Which one thing is Yang Chen positioning almost minute because she's lying to him. And Yang Chen knows a lot about administration. She's read a bunch, but then she goes and says, "But Avatar Zero, on the other hand, knows a great deal." And then the Earth King's eyes gleam, um, and then he's like, "Oh, you could consult him on every decision you make." And then the book was like, "She could not." Okay, it says connecting with her past lives did not work like how Fishin was imagining it. She could see previous avatars' memories, experience their emotions throughout the pivotal moments of their eras. But as far as she could tell, her past lives couldn't form new opinions or fresh predictions or make decisions for her in the present world, no matter how conversational their interaction between ancient memories and sorry and the wait, yeah, ancient memories current information played out during a session of communing. So it's interesting that different avatars, even communicate with their past lives in different ways. This seems more like let me look up the encyclopedia of how someone handled this problem, rather than Aang being like, hey, do you think I should kill the Fire Lord? Yeah.
There again, it's very lawyer-like. Like she's like, I have an established precedent from a one Avatar Zito.
And it goes on to say, like, Avatar Zeto had never seen a Shang city. He had never dealt with a situation exactly like the Platinum Affair or an Earth King exactly like Fei Shan. He would never develop plans on her behalf or whisper in her ear the perfect choice at picture. And then she just responded, yes. My predecessor would be the one making the calls, not me. My involvement would be minimal. Gosh. That's her boldest, falsest claim yet.
Like I'm
There were
just gonna
no
call him.
world.
He's dead, but I got his number. It's all right. Just gonna holler at him.
Yeah. Uh,
We already talked about it a little bit, but I like that the big combustion bender Thampu, when he was a captive of the air nomads, and he's like kind of living his best life in there.
yeah, yeah. Those are everything I feel like I have highlighted.
Um, and that's maybe one of this book's. It's probably not fair to call it a downfall, but it's not full of these sort of like highlight caliber moments. At least not to the extent maybe of the first Kyoshi novel, for sure. Debatably the second one, but hopefully
Yeah, I
there was
think I
enough in there to
have.
like whet your appetite if you haven't already read it.
Yeah, looking through, like, I have a bunch of different. This is the Kyoshi novel. You can see a little bit of highlights all.
Nice color the whole way through, consistent.
Yeah. uh, like, I just one highlight I went across. Korra, this is Kyoshi talking. Korra, get out here now before I die, or I will cross over to the other side and come after you there.
That's,
Like, I forget how much I actually did like the second one. I thought the second one had way more lore drop than I think the first. I mean, we learned so much about Korra.
I need to
They
reread the
completely
second because
changed.
I've only read it one time, but I've read the first twice, so I feel like I need to give the second another read, just to be fair.
Yeah.
Uh, well,
Uh,
Chris, any final thoughts you care to offer on the Dawn of Yangchen now that we are nearing the end of our 3 episode review spectacular?
I loved it despite my critiques of it. I still love the book. It is still a must read for all Avatar fans out there. The Kyoshi novels are better, but you know what? I want to leave on a positive. I am really excited to see where it goes. I'm really excited to see how Yang Chen is challenged coming up. I think she's going to be even more challenged. I think she's going to make very controversial decisions and choices and actions. I'm really looking forward to what's to come. It'll
Dis-
probably be a year from now. That's how the Kyoshi novels where they were only like a year apart.
Despite my qualms with the novel, it is a good piece of Avatar content, and I like what it's setting up for the second Yangchen novel. Excited to see where it goes. That's my final thought.
Yep.
Chris, I'm really tired. Let's get out of here.
Me too, and I got actual work to do, so I don't have to do it tomorrow.
Ooh, I think I would do it tomorrow. But
Well,
hey,
I could wait till tomorrow. It said anytime I see something that's due by end of day, I'm like, that means it's due by 11:59 p.m.
yeah, well, you missed it, man. I'm sorry. Due by 11:59 p.m. on the West
No,
Coast.
tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow. Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
But tomorrow's Friday, so if it's due 11:59 p.m. tomorrow on Friday, it's not really due till Tuesday morning at 7:59 a.m.
Yeah, I don't know. It's to like the higher up sort of deal. So
Fine,
I don't
whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, everybody else out there, thank you for hanging out with us, and we hope that you get a chance to read this novel on your own and tell us your thoughts. We'd love to hear them. In the meantime, my name's Shawn Shaler. That guy down there is my friend Chris Ford, aka The Objective Geek of YouTube and Twitter and Avatar book review fame. We are Avatar The Last Podcasters. I'll put all the contact stuff, like always, down in the, what is it called? Down in the something.
Description?
It's really late. Down in the description? Is that the word I'm looking for?
That's what it is.
That's it. It's very literal. And thank y'all. We will see you next time. Why is description a hard word? I don't know. Hey, you know how when you read books and you never say the words out loud, like all these names, is that,
Yeah.
Like, do you ever have those words that you just mispronounce for the rest of your life because of books?